It's now time to consider the third barrier, the third emotional barrier that we've been developing here. The first being this addiction to data, the second being how empathy doesn't work, and now the importance of understanding the self, the difference between narcissism and integrity. In our world today, we're in a constant struggle in life between the forces that really seek to play it safe, merely reproducing the status quo, the same old thing, and those who would want to be creative and preserve individuality. But unfortunately, in our current cultural context, the self has become associated with autocracy and narcissism rather than integrity. Now, this negative association leads many people to characterize leaders who have a well differentiated self in negative terms. And when we characterize leaders in that way, what we end up sabotaging their decisive leadership in the name of safety and togetherness. Now, Friedman contrasts aggressive leadership in the sense that leadership is driven by a strong, imaginative person rather than hostile intent with aggressionistic leadership, which is by its very nature hostile and invasive. The well defined self of the leader, far from being a threat to the community, is the characteristic that is most likely to enable the preservation of the self of all the members of the community. But two problems confronting leadership kind of surface in our culture today: the failure of nerve of leaders and the desire for a quick fix. These are not the result of an overly strong self, but rather of a weak or no self. While autocratic leadership is definitely unhealthy, democratic institutions have far more to fear from a leader who has a lack of self and really license that then perpetuates this kind of factionalism. Right now, Friedman illustrates this basic principle with a couple of examples. The first is the American government. Think about the structure of the American government, the principles in the structure of our government, and the manner in which it brings the togetherness advantages of the individual states. He argues that uh, um, uh, the advantages of a larger organism, while that maintain the integrity of the individual states. So you have the federal government, but you have the individual states, and while this larger organism is there, the togetherness advantages of that larger organism maintain the integrity of the individual states. He argues that this illuminates an underlying principle. Quote, for life to continue to evolve, all newly developed forms of togetherness ultimately must be in the service of a more enriched individuality and not the other way around. A second example that he uses relates to the concept of self, to the evolution of organisms in nature, such as, for instance, the differentiated cell, which can preserve its own individuality and integrity through producing other cells with that same function and through being able to mount a defense against what he calls not self. That is, other entities, other organisms that would invade or parasitize it. That is function as a parasite. So this first brief lecture, the importance of self. Now we're gonna step into an understanding of self, the importance of self differentiation, and then this conversation, important conversation about maintaining a non anxious presence. Thank you.